I'm Tessa Morgan, 29, and my downtown Denver condo isn't just an address. It's the hard-earned proof that I made it on my own. After years of struggle, this place became my safe haven. Far from the emotional landmines my parents and older sister Danielle left scattered across my past. Then came that dinner last month, just a casual Sunday night, or so I thought, when my mom put down her fork and said, "Danielle's moving in." No discussion, no warning, just a final decision. "Don't make this difficult," Dad added. Like always, it wasn't a request. It was an expectation. The very next weekend, their SUV pulled up outside my building, packed to the brim. But when the door swung open, it wasn't me standing there. And their stunned faces? Absolutely priceless. If you've ever had to defend your space, your peace, against your own family, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happened next. Let me take you back a bit. I've worked at Summit and Slate, a boutique branding firm in Denver, for nearly 6 years. Just this spring, I landed a creative director role after countless late nights and impossible deadlines. The raise wasn't massive, but it allowed me to lease this one-bedroom loft with exposed brick and a skyline view I'd once only dreamed of. Sure, the plumbing hums like it's haunted, and my kitchen's about the size of a postage stamp, but it's mine. I've filled it with mismatched vintage furniture, succulents that somehow survived, and framed prints from local artists who inspire me. This condo isn't fancy, but it's a monument to every gig, every rejection, and every ramen-fueled week I pushed through to get here. There were years when I lived out of boxes and relied on my best friend Riley to crash on her pull-out couch in 5 points. She's a barista with a heart of gold and zero tolerance for nonsense. Our Thursday night wine and vent sessions are sacred. Justin, my coworker turned confidant, usually drops by too, often with his fiancée Miguel and some new dating horror story from one of his friends. These are my people. They see me. They get me. My family? Not so much. Danielle is 32 and still acts like she's owed the world. Growing up, everything revolved around her allergies, her drama, her dreams. My wins were overlooked, my milestones ignored. Until now. Because the next chapter? Oh, it's going to be mine, and they'll have no choice but to watch. My 10th birthday party was canceled because Danielle, then 13, got detention for skipping math class, and my parents were too stressed to host a house full of 4th graders. Meanwhile, Danielle's 13th birthday? Full-blown backyard bash with a rented DJ, fairy lights, and a taco truck parked in our driveway. That pattern never changed. It just grew up with us. Danielle has never kept a job longer than 8 months. Her resume is a parade of retail stores, coffee shops, and yoga studios across the Denver metro area. According to her, every job ends the same. My manager hated me, or the vibe was off. And yet, she always has the newest iPhone, boutique handbags, and fresh lash extensions. Her dating history's just as messy. Her latest boyfriend, Ryan, actually seemed decent, a site supervisor for a local contracting company. He even remembered my name and once brought wine to Thanksgiving. But their relationship lasted less than a year. When she called me sobbing, I already knew the script. He was too controlling. Turns out, he suggested making a shared budget. Apparently, that was abuse. The real issue isn't Danielle's chaos. It's how our parents feed it. Whenever she's behind on rent, which is often, Mom wires her money instantly. If she gets fired, Dad's on the phone blaming the employer. There's always a reason Danielle's not responsible for her own mess. Our parents, Richard and Karen Morgan, raised us in a tidy beige house in Golden, about 40 minutes from downtown Denver. Dad's been with the same insurance company since the 90s, and Mom works part-time as a school administrator. They're not rich, but they've built a steady, stable life through careful saving and relentless control. And that control? Oh, it comes gift-wrapped in guilt. Mom's trademark is the soft sigh, followed by, "We just worry about you, sweetie," which actually means, "We don't trust your judgment." Dad's more straightforward. His version of parenting is issuing ultimatums and then clamming up if you push back. Which brings us to 3 weeks ago, that Sunday dinner. I try to see them twice a month. It keeps the peace, and honestly, it keeps the guilt from gnawing a hole in my stomach. That evening, Mom had made pot roast, my favorite. I should have known something was brewing. Dessert was warm apple pie with vanilla bean ice cream. As she served it, Dad cleared his throat, a sound that always signals a serious talk. "Tessa," he said, eyes fixed on mine. "We need to talk about something important." My shoulders tensed. "What's going on?" I asked, pretending to stay calm. "It's your sister," Mom said gently, setting a slice of pie in front of me. "She's going through a hard time." "Ryan broke up with her," Dad continued, his tone more irritated than sympathetic, as if Ryan was the one who clearly didn't know what he had. "He kicked her out of their apartment." I wasn't shocked. Honestly, I felt more resigned than anything. I just sighed and said, "That's tough. Is she staying with you two for now?" The glance they exchanged made my stomach knot. "Well, that's what we wanted to talk to you about," Mom said, her voice slipping into that overly sweet tone she used when delivering something I wasn't going to like. "Your sister's moving in with you." I nearly dropped my fork. "What?" "Your sister's moving in," Dad repeated firmly. "She needs a place to land, and you've got that extra room, the one you use as an office." "It makes perfect sense," he added, like we were discussing rearranging furniture, not uprooting my life. Except it made no sense. They weren't asking. They were announcing. As if my condo, which I worked years to afford, was suddenly family property. "Did Danielle even ask me about this?" I asked, doing my best to sound calm. "She's embarrassed," Mom said softly. "You know how proud she is. But she needs family right now." "I can't just—" I started. "It's already decided," Dad cut in. "The moving truck's packed. She'll be there Saturday." And just like that, my quiet, hard-earned peace was being steamrolled, erased in a 5-minute chat over homemade apple pie. I put my fork down with a clatter, my appetite gone. "Wait a second. You can't just decide this without even asking me." Dad raised his brows the way he always had when I questioned him, as if I were being difficult for having thoughts of my own. "We're talking now." "No," I shot back. "You're telling me, after making the decision." "My condo is a 1-bedroom with a small office. It's not a 2-bedroom. "You have that little office space," Mom chimed in, like I didn't know my own layout. "Danielle doesn't need much." "That's my workspace," I said, trying not to sound angry. "I work from home 2 days a week. My whole setup is in there, my tablet, books, client files." "You can move it all into your bedroom," Dad said with a shrug. "Plenty of people work from their bedrooms." I took a breath. Having someone else here means more expenses, utilities, groceries, everything. I just got that promotion, but living in Denver isn't exactly cheap. "She'll contribute," Mom said quickly, but her eyes slid away. Even she didn't buy it. "Once she gets back on her feet." "And when will that be?" I pressed. "How long is this arrangement supposed to last?" Another quick glance passed between my parents. "Well, we can't put an exact timeline on it," Mom said, her voice sugary smooth. "Just until she's stable again." Weeks? Months? Years? The last word came out sharper than I meant, but I didn't take it back. "That's what family does, Tessa," Mom replied, slipping into her usual wounded tone. "We support each other without keeping score or watching the clock. I would think you'd want to be there for your sister during such a difficult time." Dad leaned forward, his elbows hitting the table like gavel strikes. "This isn't a negotiation. Danielle needs help. You're in a position to provide it." End of discussion. As if her name had summoned her, the front door creaked open, and in walked Danielle. Her eyes were red, but her makeup? Flawless. Big lashes, fresh lip gloss, and not a single hair out of place. She paused in the doorway, reading the tension like a pro. "You told her?" she asked softly, her voice trembling just enough to sound fragile. "We're discussing it," Mom said, reaching a hand toward her. Danielle made her way to the table and slid into the chair beside me, reaching for her water glass with a practiced sigh. "I know this is a lot to ask," she murmured, eyes glistening. "I wouldn't even consider it if I had any other option." "What happened with Ryan?" I asked, trying, maybe foolishly, to give her the benefit of the doubt. Her lip quivered. He started obsessing over money, checking credit card statements, asking why I needed so many deliveries. Then he found out about the Nordstrom card and lost it, called me irresponsible, said I had a shopping addiction. She dabbed at her mascara with a tissue. Can you believe that? Just because I like quality things? Unfortunately, I could believe it. Last Christmas, she borrowed my credit card to buy one gift. She maxed it out on designer boots and a suede handbag. For herself. And your apartment? I asked. It was in his name, she said with a dramatic sigh. He gave me 2 weeks to get out. What about your job at Lux Threads? I prompted. Last I heard, she worked at an upscale boutique at Cherry Creek Mall. They let me go, she whispered. They said it was too many tardies, which is ridiculous. The light rail is never on time. Of course, it wasn't just a breakup. Danielle's whole life was crumbling, and somehow I was supposed to glue it back together. Honey, Mom chimed in, we already told Danielle she can stay with you. We would have taken her in, but your father's allergies. Ah, yes, Dad's mysterious allergies, always flaring up at the most convenient moments. And their guest room? Allegedly still being painted for the past 3 years. I tried staying with Jenna, Danielle said, referring to a friend I'd met once or twice years ago. But her boyfriend's always over, and they're constantly fighting. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. She glanced down like she was ashamed, but the next sentence gave her away. And I already helped her pay off some of her credit card debt. Dad chimed in, arms crossed like a defense attorney resting his case. The rest she'll take care of once she's employed again. As if that absolved them. As if that erased the fact that every concern I raised was getting bulldozed. Every sentence I spoke was countered. Every hesitation ignored. The decision had been made before I even walked into their house tonight. I need to think about this, I said, pushing my chair back slowly. This is a major change. I need time. There's nothing to think about, Dad snapped. The truck's rented. We'll be at your place Saturday morning. 9 sharp? I declined the leftover pie. And the guilt. The drive home was a haze of betrayal and dread. My phone buzzed. Danielle, can't wait to be roomies again, just like when we were kids. Think my queen bed will fit in the office? Should I bring my Vitamix, or do you already have a good blender? Each message tightened the knot in my chest. Images of our teenage years came rushing back. My journals rifled through, clothes borrowed and returned with makeup stains. My friends pulled into her orbit until I felt invisible. Only now it wouldn't be posters and lip gloss at risk. It would be my professional setup, my peace. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I turned into the lot of Wild Pine Coffee, a cozy little place tucked beside a bike shop near Capitol Hill. The warm light and scent of espresso helped ground me as I stepped inside. Tessa? That you? I looked over and saw Riley, sitting by the window, red pen in hand and a stack of middle school essays in front of her. The universe had handed me a lifeline. Hey, I said, exhaling as I slid into the chair across from her. Mind if I sit? Please. These, what I did this summer essays are draining my will to live. She pushed the stack aside. You look like someone backed over your dreams. Spill it. And I did. Everything. In a whirlwind of disbelief and rising panic. When I finished, Riley's eyes narrowed. They don't get to decide this. It's your apartment, your lease, your life. You know my parents, I muttered. When their minds are made up. Then unmake it, she said, voice sharp with conviction. Tell them no. I've tried. It never works. I stirred my latte absently, watching the foam swirl. Either they wear me down or I give in just to keep the peace, I said quietly. And now, they've already promised Danielle she can move in. Riley was silent for a moment, her pen tapping against her ceramic mug. Then her eyes lit up, the look that usually came right before either genius or chaos. What if, she said slowly, the office wasn't available? I blinked. What do you mean? I can't remodel in 5 days. Not remodel. What if someone else was already staying there? She leaned in, lowering her voice like we were hatching an escape plan. My cousin Tyler just moved to Denver for a job at Amazon. He's in some overpriced Airbnb while apartment hunting. What if he became your temporary roommate? I stared. You want me to move a stranger into my apartment to keep Danielle out? He's not a stranger. He's my cousin. I've known him his entire life. She pulled up a photo on her phone. A guy our age, dark hair, glasses, gentle smile. He's quiet, clean, has zero social life, and would be beyond grateful to pay half your rent while he finds a place. It was wild, possibly inappropriate, definitely last minute. Tell me more. And just like that, Riley's coffee shop brainstorm became reality. By the next night, I was sitting across from Tyler at a Thai place near my apartment, trying to pretend it was a casual dinner and not a make-or-break roommate interview. Thanks again for meeting on such short notice, he said, adjusting his glasses. The Airbnb costs are killing me, and I jumped at the Amazon offer without thinking about Denver housing. He was tall, a bit bookish, and surprisingly soft-spoken. Not the typical hyper-confident tech guy I'd imagined. Riley says great things about you, I told him, nudging noodles around my plate. But I'll be upfront. This is a temporary setup. The office is small. There's a futon, not a bed, and not much room to spread out. That's totally fine, he said quickly. I just need a few months to learn the area and save up for one of these ridiculous deposits. We walked through logistics. Rent, he offered more than I expected. Utilities, kitchen use, shower timing. The more we talked, the more it felt like this might actually work. He worked long hours, rarely cooked, was fanatical about cleanliness, didn't host parties, had no pets, and mostly spent free time reading science fiction. I should also mention, I said, lowering my voice, the real reason I need a roommate is complicated. My sister was supposed to move in this weekend. My parents made that decision without asking me, and now I was doing everything I could to stop it. Instead of the judgment I half expected, Tyler simply nodded. Riley mentioned something about family pressure, he said. I get it. My mom still tries to plan my weekends from 1,000 miles away. You don't think it's awful of me to block my own sister from moving in? He considered it for a beat. I think it's your apartment, your life, and sometimes family has no idea where your boundaries begin and end. By the end of dinner, it was unofficially official. I had a new temporary roommate. Tyler dropped by the next evening to check out the space, and by Wednesday, just 3 days after that disastrous Sunday dinner, he was moving in. He arrived with just the essentials, a couple of duffel bags, a laptop, a worn stack of science fiction books, and a reusable grocery tote full of toiletries. No drama. No boxes marked fragile. No emotional baggage. At least, none that showed. We converted the office fast. I moved my drawing tablet and critical supplies into a dedicated corner in my bedroom. Not ideal, but workable for a few months. Tyler offered to help rearrange everything, and by Wednesday night, the office had transformed into a surprisingly cozy little bedroom, complete with a futon and a borrowed lamp Riley dropped off. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from Danielle. Should I grab Ty for us Saturday night? Do you have any drawer space for my skincare stuff? Texts from Mom, gentle reminders, missed calls from Dad. I let them go to voicemail, replying only with, sorry, crazy week. Lots of work meetings. I was delaying the inevitable, but every day gave Tyler more presence in the space, more reality behind the decision I hadn't yet told them about. You'll have to tell them soon, Riley pointed out during our Thursday wine night, which we relocated to her apartment to give Tyler some breathing room. I know, I sighed, topping off our glasses. Tomorrow, once everything's settled. How's it going with him? Any weirdness? I shook my head. None. He's insanely quiet, does his own dishes, even brought a French press for the kitchen, as a thank you gift. Told you, Riley said smugly. Quiet guys are often the best roommates. It's just surreal, I admitted. I spent 3 years building this perfect solo setup. Now I've got a roommate. At least you picked this one, Riley said with a wink. Better the angel you choose than the demon sister you didn't. Danielle's not a demon, I said out of reflex, the words automatic after a lifetime of defending her. She's just a lot, Riley finished. I nodded. A lot of trouble. Don't move on my account, I said as I stepped inside. There's plenty of room. Tyler settled back on the couch, book in hand, as I kicked off my shoes and dropped into the armchair. How was wine night? He asked. Therapeutic, I replied with a sigh. Riley sends her love, by the way. She texted earlier to double-check that you weren't secretly an axe murderer, he said with a smirk. Regretting setting me up with a relative stranger? Are you an axe murderer? Not currently, I said, grinning. Too much effort. I prefer quieter methods of emotional destruction, like graphic design. He chuckled. Fair. My job's doing a pretty good number on my soul. First week at Amazon? I get why they have wellness pods. I laughed. Sounds about right. How's the science fiction escape going? He tapped the bookmark. More uplifting than my onboarding. Then his eyes flicked toward me. You ready for tomorrow's situation? I groaned. Not even remotely. Part of me wants to just disappear for the day. Vanish until it blows over. Would that help in the long run? No, I admitted. It'd just make everything worse. I chewed on my lip. I should call them. Tonight. Just give them a heads up. You want me to clear out for that call? I shook my head. No need. I'll take it in my room. But I didn't. Not that night, not the next morning. Every time I picked up my phone, I set it back down. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment. But the truth? I was doing what I always did, avoiding conflict. By Friday evening, I still hadn't said a word. Tyler and I were on the couch sharing a pizza and watching a documentary when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. Don't forget, we'll be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow with Danielle's things. Please make sure the office is cleared out. Love you. I stared at it, stomach tightening. Tyler raised an eyebrow. They're still coming? I nodded, showing him the message. I never told them. What are you going to do? I exhaled deeply. I guess I'm having a surprise family reunion. You want me out during that? He offered gently. I paused, then shook my head. Actually, if you don't mind, I want you here. I sat up straighter. In fact, I think you should answer the door. Saturday morning rolled in with gray skies and a slow drizzle, classic Denver spring gloom. It matched my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept. My mind kept circling through imagined conversations, worst-case scenarios, and every way this could go sideways. Now, Tyler and I sat at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee in a quiet standoff with the morning. It was the calm before the storm. You sure about this? He asked, glancing at the clock. 8:45 a.m. No, I said honestly, gripping my mug like it could anchor me. But I'm out of time. And honestly, out of options. We could still call them, he offered. Just give them a heads up. I shook my head. They'd try to talk me out of it. Or worse, show up early and demand you leave. This way, they won't have time to prepare a response. Tyler gave a small nod, adjusting his glasses. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Setting boundaries doesn't make you the bad guy. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. 8:52. Earlier than expected. They're early, I whispered, panic tightening in my chest. Through the window, I saw their silver SUV parked out front, hazard lights blinking. Behind it, a small rental truck. I could practically feel the weight of Danielle's chaos behind that cargo door. Tyler calmly stood and took a final sip of his coffee. I can still hang back if you'd rather face them alone, he offered. For a second, I wanted to accept. To fall back into the old pattern of shielding everyone from conflict, especially myself. But that version of me didn't have a roommate. That version didn't have a voice. No, I said, surprising even myself. Go ahead, answer it. Tyler nodded and walked toward the door while I stayed just out of view in the kitchen. The doorbell rang again, followed by a firm knock. Then, click. Can I help you? Tyler's voice was perfectly casual, like we'd rehearsed. A moment of silence followed. I think we have the wrong apartment, Dad said uncertainly. We're looking for Tessa Morgan. This is Tessa's apartment, Tyler replied. I'm Tyler, her roommate. Another long pause. Then Mom's voice, high-pitched and confused. Roommate? There must be a mistake. We're her parents, she added quickly. And this is her sister, Danielle. I could picture it. The confusion, the disapproval, the tightening expressions. It was time. I stepped around the corner, forcing my posture upright and my voice steady. "Hi, Mom. Dad? Danielle?" Their eyes snapped to me, wide and stunned. The silence that followed was deafening. "You're early," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. My father's eyes flicked between me and Tyler, confusion twisting quickly into anger. "What's going on here? Who is this man?" Before I could answer, Mom swept past Tyler into the apartment like she owned the place. Her eyes scanned everything. Tyler's jacket hanging by the door, his books stacked neatly on the coffee table, his laptop open on the desk. "Tessa Rose Morgan," she snapped, using my full name like I was 12 again. "What have you done?" Danielle was still lingering in the hallway, her expression moving from shock to betrayal to pure fury. "You got a roommate to keep me out?" Her voice cracked at the end, loud enough to make Mrs. Garcia's door creak open across the hall. She peeked out, expression curious and not at all discreet. "Can we please take this inside?" I said, flushing. "Sorry, Mrs. Garcia." "No problem, dear," she replied, clearly enjoying the show. Dad stepped into the apartment, his stance stiff and confrontational. "Young man," he said, locking eyes with Tyler, "I don't know what Tessa told you, but there's been a misunderstanding. We need you to leave. Immediately." But Tyler didn't flinch. "Sir, I signed a rental agreement with Tessa. I live here now." "Rental agreement?" Dad's voice shot up an octave. He turned to me. "Tessa, what is this?" That was Danielle's cue. She stormed fully into the scene and collapsed onto the floor in the hallway like she'd been hit by a bus. "I'm going to be homeless," she wailed. "My own sister would rather live with a stranger than let me stay here." Perfect timing. Mr. Peterson's door opened, followed by the unmistakable sound of Mr. Delgado, our building manager, climbing the stairs. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, voice laced with authority. "We've had a few noise complaints." 5 minutes into this, and I'd managed to involve half the building. Dad glared at Tyler like he wanted to throw him out himself. Mom looked around my apartment like she was preparing an audit. Danielle sobbed like she was auditioning for Broadway. "Everything's fine," I told Mr. Delgado, forcing a smile. "Family discussion. We're moving it inside now." "Please do," he said firmly, "or I'll need to ask your guests to leave." "Everyone inside," I said, motioning toward the living room. One by one, they entered. Tyler shut the door, cutting off the gawking neighbors. The room suddenly felt too full, too loud. "Sit down," I said, gesturing. "Please." My parents sank stiffly onto the couch. Danielle, after one last sniffle, perched on the armrest, arms folded. "Here we go. If you've ever had to stand your ground, especially with family, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, the real confrontation is just getting started." Tyler moved to stand near the kitchen counter, present, but giving us space. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and unclenched my fists at my sides. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the clock above the entryway and Danielle's dramatic sniffles. "I need everyone to listen to me," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "Really listen, without interrupting." Dad started to speak, but Mom placed a hand on his arm. He closed his mouth. I took it as permission to go on. "For as long as I can remember, what I need, what I want, has always come second in this family." The words felt like stepping out over a frozen lake, unsure if it would hold, but I kept going. When we were kids, Danielle's piano recitals were family events. Flowers, dinners out, the whole thing. Mine? Attended if it didn't interfere with something more important. My 10th birthday was canceled because Danielle had detention. But for her 13th, you hired a food truck and a balloon artist. "That's not fair," Mom started, but I raised a hand. "Please, let me finish." She fell quiet, jaw clenched. This pattern didn't stop with childhood. In college, when I needed help with tuition, I was told to take out loans because you were covering Danielle's credit card debt. When I was scraping by on ramen and working 2 part-time jobs, you were paying her deposit on her 3rd apartment in 2 years. I turned to face my sister. "Danielle, I love you. You're my sister. But this This isn't about not wanting to help. It's about being told, again, how my life will go, without anyone asking me. Her face shifted, conflicted, hurt, yes, but also something softer. Like maybe she was hearing me for the first time. I've worked incredibly hard for this apartment, I continued. I saved for months. I painted it myself. I bought furniture piece by piece. This is the first place I've ever had that's mine, and I deserve to decide who shares it. I nodded toward Tyler. This is Tyler. He's Riley's cousin, and my new roommate. He moved in 3 days ago. You did this on purpose, Dad said, his voice low, to shut your sister out. Yes, I said simply, because for once, I chose what I needed over what you expected from me. Mom's voice cracked. So you'd rather live with a stranger than your own sister? He's not... I started, but Tyler took a step forward. If I may, Tyler said politely, hands loosely folded in front of him. I understand this is a family matter, and I'm an outsider here, but Tessa and I have a legal roommate agreement. He glanced at my parents evenly. I've paid rent and moved in. I'm happy to give you all privacy, but I wanted to make the situation clear. Dad's glare snapped to him like a whip. And who exactly are you? Where did you come from? How do we know you're not taking advantage of our daughter? Dad? I exclaimed, mortified. Tyler stayed calm. That's a fair question. I'm Tyler Ramirez. I recently relocated from Chicago for a software development position at Amazon. I'm Riley's cousin. You can call her if you'd like to confirm. He continued, unfazed. I needed short-term housing while I apartment hunt. Tessa needed a roommate. This arrangement benefits us both. Mutually beneficial, Dad repeated, voice dripping with sarcasm. While your own sister has nowhere to go? That's cold, Tessa. I didn't raise you to be this selfish. Selfish. The word landed like a punch. How many times had I heard it when I couldn't drop everything? When I didn't loan Mom my car because I needed to get to work. When I didn't co-sign Danielle's lease because my credit was still recovering from school debt. It's not selfish to have boundaries, I said, my voice quieter but firm. It's not selfish to expect to be asked, not told. It's not selfish to want control over where I live. We're family, Mom said, like it was a magic phrase that erased everything else. Family helps family. I would have helped, I replied, if you had asked, if you respected me enough to have a real conversation instead of an ambush. If you considered, even once, how this would affect my life. A heavy silence followed. Tyler glanced at me, then said gently, I think I'll give you a bit of space. Just text me when you're ready. I nodded gratefully, and he slipped out. The apartment suddenly felt both wider and tighter without his steady presence. Danielle stood. Her eyes were glassy. Well, this is just perfect, she snapped. My little sister hates me so much, she'd rather live with a stranger. I don't hate you, Danielle, I said, exhausted. This isn't really about you. Sure feels like it, she shot back. Where am I supposed to go now? The truck is rented. All my stuff is packed. Danielle's voice cracked slightly. You could stay with Mom and Dad, I suggested, keeping my tone neutral. Dad's allergies seem to come and go when it's convenient. Dad's face flushed. Now wait just a minute. No, she's right, Danielle interrupted, surprising all of us. She turned toward our parents, eyes sharper now. Why exactly can't I stay with you? That spare bedroom's been getting painted for, 3 years? Mom looked flustered. Well, it's just, your father's allergies have been particularly bad lately, and that's bull, Danielle snapped. Danielle, Mom gasped. Language. But Danielle wasn't backing down. Number I want to know. Why push me onto Tessa? Why not take me in yourselves? Dad and Mom exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Dad spoke. We thought... He hesitated. You need to learn independence. You're 32. You can't keep jumping from one crisis to the next, expecting someone else to catch you. I blinked. This was not the direction I'd expected things to go. So your solution was to force me on Tessa? Danielle asked, incredulous. How does that teach me anything? Mom tried again, her voice softer. We thought maybe you and your sister could support each other. She's always been so responsible, and you could contribute to rent, learn some structure. Then it clicked. I looked at them, realization sinking in. You weren't trying to help Danielle by sending her to me, I said slowly. You were trying to help yourselves. Their silence said everything. You're tired of bailing her out, but you don't want to be the ones to cut her off. So you thought you'd make her my problem instead. For the first time, I saw them not as authority figures, but as overwhelmed people who had simply run out of ideas. Danielle laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. So, nobody actually wanted me. That's just great. She turned away, brushing at her eyes. Despite everything, sympathy bloomed in my chest. As dramatic as she could be, this moment was real. I'm going to wait in the car, she said, voice tight with tears. Figure out what you're doing with my stuff. She walked out quietly, closing the door behind her with unexpected gentleness. The silence that followed was thick. Finally, Mom whispered, we were just trying to do what's best for everyone. By making decisions for everyone without asking them, I replied. That's not what's best. That's just control. That's not what's best. That's what's easiest. Dad let out a long sigh, and suddenly he looked every bit of his 58 years. We've supported Danielle through 3 evictions, 5 job losses, and more relationship drama than a soap opera. We're exhausted, Tessa. We thought, maybe if she had your influence. So you volunteered me, I finished for him, because it's easier to steamroll me than it is to set boundaries with her. Neither of them denied it. I'm not going to be your solution, I said, voice steady. I love you both, and I love Danielle, but I'm done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Dad stood abruptly. We should go. Figure out what to do with the truck and Danielle's things. Mom grabbed her purse, her mouth tight. This isn't like you, Tessa. The daughter I raised would never let her sister struggle. The guilt trip was so familiar, it almost made me laugh. The daughter you raised is standing right here, Mom, I said quietly. I'm just finally speaking up for myself. They left with strained goodbyes, tension still hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. When the door clicked shut, I sank into the couch, emotionally drained, but oddly light, relieved. The confrontation I dreaded had happened, and I was still here. The apartment was still mine, and for maybe the first time in my adult life, I'd drawn a line and refused to erase it. I was about to text Tyler when there was a soft knock at the door. Assuming he'd forgotten his key, I opened it, only to find Danielle standing there. Her eyes were red, but not streaming. Can we talk? She asked softly. Just us? I hesitated a moment, then stepped aside. She walked in slowly, like a guest. Not the sister who'd assumed she'd have a key by now. Mom and Dad left? I asked. She nodded. They're in the car, probably regrouping. Dad's tapping the steering wheel and muttering. I couldn't help it. I smiled. That little rhythm he does with his fingers when he's mad and pretending not to be? Exactly. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Coffee? I offered, already walking toward the kitchen. Tyler brought a French press. Sure, she said, sitting on the edge of the couch. He seems nice. Grace's cousin, you said? Danielle's voice was even, but I could feel something deeper beneath it. I busied myself grinding beans and prepping the French press, grateful for the excuse not to meet her eyes just yet. Yeah, I said, measuring the water. He just moved here from Chicago, works at Amazon.com. And you just happened to find a roommate the same week I needed a place to stay? I paused, then decided it was time to be honest. I called Riley Sunday night, I admitted. After that dinner, I panicked. She suggested Tyler as an alternative. Danielle nodded slowly, processing it. So you really didn't want me here that badly? I turned to face her. It wasn't about not wanting you, I said carefully. It was about not wanting to be told how things would go in my home, about feeling like, once again, what I needed didn't matter. I poured the coffee and handed her a mug as I sat across from her in the armchair. Tyler had texted earlier. He was grabbing breakfast at the cafe down the street. We had space and time. Danielle held the mug in her hands, not drinking yet. You know what's weird? She said after a moment. When Mom and Dad told me I'd be staying here, I didn't want to. That caught me off guard. You didn't? She shook her head. I wanted to say no. I knew your place was small, and we haven't been close. But they said it was the only option and that you'd be totally fine with it. She stared into her coffee. It was easier to go along than argue. I know that feeling, I said quietly. She looked up and met my eyes. We've both been playing our roles forever, haven't we? You're the responsible one. I'm the mess. You save, I spend, you succeed, I flail. I blinked. I'd never heard Danielle speak with such clarity. When did this version of you show up? A soft, sad smile curved her lips. About 6 months ago. Troy's idea. Originally. Therapy. She hesitated. It's not just liking nice things. It's compulsive. I shop when I'm anxious, or when I feel empty. The high lasts 5 minutes. Then the guilt crushes me. But by then, the money's already gone. It was the most honest she'd been in years. I didn't know you were in therapy. Didn't tell anyone, she said. Didn't want to be the screw-up finally admitting she screwed up. She took a small sip. But I was getting better. I had a budget. I was trying. Then Troy found the Nordstrom card I'd hidden, Danielle said, her voice low. He realized I'd lied about stopping. He told me he couldn't trust me anymore. I'm sorry, I said softly, and I meant it. That must have been hard. It was. Still is. She set her mug down on the coffee table. Then, more quietly, the truth is, Tessa, I'm jealous of you. I always have been. I nearly choked on my coffee. Jealous? Of me? You were always the favorite. She gave a dry laugh. The favorites grew up, eventually. Her eyes were steady. They expected nothing from me, and everything from you. And you delivered. Good grades, steady job, independence. Meanwhile, I'm 32 and hitting reset. Again. It hit me hard. I'd never once considered that side of it. All these years, I'd seen myself as the one carrying the weight, but maybe she was drowning under a different kind of pressure, being underestimated. For what it's worth, I said slowly, I was always jealous of how easily life seemed to come to you. Friends, dates, popularity. You were the fun one, the pretty one. Danielle actually laughed. God, we're a mess, envying each other, missing the big picture the whole time. We fell into a silence that was, for once, not uncomfortable, just honest. So what now? I asked. What are you going to do? She sighed, brushing her thumbs over the rim of her mug. I can't go back to Mom and Dad's. It'd undo everything therapy's helped me work through. Most of my friends are party people. Not exactly what I need right now. What about Heather? I offered. Didn't you say you stayed with her before? Her brows lifted. Actually, her boyfriend just moved out 2 days ago. She can't afford the rent solo. She's looking for a roommate. I nodded. That could be a good fit? You said she knows what you've been working through? Yeah, since college. She's one of the few who gets it, who doesn't encourage the worst in me. I could see something change in her face. A little hope. Her place is closer to downtown too. Way better for job hunting. Speaking of which, I nudged gently. Any idea what kind of job you're after? She tucked her hair behind her ear, a gesture I hadn't seen in years. I've been thinking. I'm good with people. When I'm grounded. My therapist suggested something structured. Maybe admin work. I smiled. I might know someone. One of our clients at Horizon is always looking for front desk staff, I said. The pay's not amazing, but it's consistent. And they're flexible, as long as you're honest with them. Danielle's eyes widened slightly. You'd recommend me? After everything? You're my sister, I said simply. I want to help. Just not by having you take over my home without asking. She nodded, quieter now. I get that. I really do. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Is it okay to come back yet? I smiled and typed back. Yes. Come on in. Then I looked up at Danielle. I think this might be the first real conversation we've had in years. She gave a half smile. Probably since before college. It's weird, but nice. A moment later, the front door opened and Tyler stepped inside, holding a small brown paper bag from the bakery downstairs. He paused when he saw Danielle still seated. Sorry. Should I come back later? It's fine, I assured him. Tyler, this is my sister, Danielle. Danielle, This is Tyler. Danielle stood to shake his hand. The roommate, she said with a smirk. Sorry about the chaos earlier. Tyler gave her a polite smile. No worries. Families are complicated. I get it. Danielle glanced toward the door. I should get going. Mom and Dad are probably stewing in the car, wondering what's taking so long, and we need to figure out what to do with the stuff in the truck. Keep me posted about Heather, I said, and I'll email my contact at Meridian Publishing on Monday about the front desk role. Thanks. She hesitated, then stepped forward and gave me a quick, slightly awkward hug. For the coffee. And everything else. After she left, Tyler set the bakery bag on the counter. Well, that went better than expected. Shockingly, yes, I said, still processing the unexpected shift. We actually talked, like adults. And your parents? He asked gently. I sighed. That'll take longer. They left mad, disappointed. Mom's probably already halfway through her signature guilt spiral. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. I hope you're happy with your decision. Danielle is heartbroken. Call when you're ready to apologize. I showed the message to Tyler, who winced. Classic guilt maneuver. One of her specialties, I said, slipping the phone into a drawer. That would have worked on me a week ago. He looked at me. And now? I paused, then smiled. Now, I think I'm finally learning how to say no. Now, I'm sad they're upset. But I'm not going to apologize for setting a boundary. Over the next few days, a new rhythm emerged. Tyler and I fell into a surprisingly easy roommate routine. He was usually out before I even got up, off to Amazon for early meetings, and didn't get home until after dinner most nights. But on weekend mornings, we shared coffee and caught up in the kind of quiet, comfortable way that doesn't require effort. He was tidy, respectful, and once his initial shyness wore off, genuinely enjoyable to talk to. Meanwhile, Danielle texted to say she'd officially moved in with Heather, and I followed through on my promise, connecting her with my contact at Meridian Publishing. To both of our surprise, she landed an interview within days. My parents, on the other hand, maintained radio silence, apart from a group text. Sunday dinner postponed until further notice. It hurt, but I recognized it for what it was. An emotional test, a manipulation, a subtle invitation to chase their approval. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I doubled down on my own growth. After seeing how therapy had helped Danielle, I found my own therapist and began untangling years of conditioned compliance. For the first time, I understood that what I always thought of as being the good daughter was often just me shrinking to make room for everyone else. By week 3, Danielle had started her new job at Meridian. The structure helps, she texted. Set hours, clear expectations. I even opened a savings account I can't dip into easily. Baby steps. Then it was Riley who broke the silence. She invited all of us, including Tyler, to dinner at her apartment. Neutral ground, she said, and I'll be there to referee. To my surprise, my parents agreed. So did Danielle. And that's how we all ended up. On a rainy Saturday evening, 1 month after everything, seated around Riley's modest dining table. The mood was strained, but civil. This is delicious, Riley, Mom said finally, breaking the silence. Did you make the sauce yourself? Tyler did, Riley replied, nudging him. He's the chef in the family. Tyler flushed slightly. It's just my grandma's marinara. Well, it's very good, Dad said stiffly, the closest thing to a compliment we'd heard from him all night. The conversation tiptoed carefully around the elephant in the room, until Danielle went straight for it. So, are we going to talk about what happened? She said, setting down her glass. Or just keep pretending we're not all radiating tension? Danielle, Mom said, her fork clattering. But Dad surprised us all. He cleared his throat, set down his napkin, and looked straight at me. She's right, he said quietly. We owe you an apology, Tessa. I nearly dropped my water glass. In 29 years, I could count on one hand the number of times I'd heard my father apologize for anything. Your mother and I have been doing some thinking, Dad continued, and some talking with a professional. He said the word like it had a foreign flavor. You're seeing a therapist? I asked, unable to hide my surprise. Family counselor, Mom clarified quickly. Just a few sessions. Pastor Jim recommended someone. The point is, Dad pressed on, clearly uncomfortable but determined. We've realized that we may have been overly directive in our approach. Controlling, Danielle offered dryly. The word you're looking for is controlling, Dad. He didn't argue. We thought we were doing what was best for both of you, he said, pushing Tessa to be the responsible one and trying to protect Danielle from the consequences of her choices. But we can see now. We didn't really help either of you. Mom reached for her glass. Her eyes were misty. We love you both so much, she said softly. We never meant to cause harm. We know, I said, my voice gentler now. I reached across the table and touched her hand. But sometimes impact matters more than intent. She nodded, squeezing my fingers. We're trying to learn that. Change doesn't come easy at our age. Danielle gave a small, self-aware laugh. Tell me about it. I'm trying to unlearn 32 years of impulse. The atmosphere had shifted. The tension wasn't gone, but it had eased, replaced with something new, something that felt like hope. We weren't magically fixed, but we were talking, openly, for once. I looked around the table, Danielle with a spark I hadn't seen in years, my parents humbled and trying, Riley contentedly sipping her wine, watching it unfold, and Tyler, quiet, steady, the catalyst who had unknowingly cracked open the door to all of this. Something shifted inside me too. The fire that once burned with anger and hurt had cooled into something more sustainable. Not surrender, conviction, a steady belief in my right to take up space. We had a long way to go, but for the first time, we were walking in the same direction. Now, 3 months after that rainy Saturday, the day a stranger opened the door to my family instead of me, everything has changed. Tyler, who once felt like a temporary shield, has become one of my closest friends, a permanent roommate. His quiet presence, calm respect, and zero expectations have redefined what healthy connection means. We've settled into a rhythm, shared dinners, quiet movie nights, and long stretches of comfortable silence. I've even introduced him to coworkers, our circles expanding, our lives gently intertwining, and I've never felt more at home. Danielle has surprised everyone, probably herself most of all. Since starting at Meridian Publishing, she completed her first performance review with no tardiness or unexcused absences, a personal milestone. She and Heather signed a full-year lease on their new apartment, and Danielle has stuck with her therapy appointments without fail. She still wrestles with shopping impulses, especially during stressful weeks. But now, she texts me when the urge hits instead of giving in. Just last Friday, she showed me her savings account with pride. It's modest, but steadily growing. Our parents, Richard and Karen, have been the slowest to change. That's not a judgment, just reality. Decades of deeply ingrained patterns don't unravel overnight, but they're trying. The family counseling sessions continue, and they've made a visible effort to respect my space. Sunday dinners eventually resumed after a 6-week pause. But this time, we have new ground rules. No unsolicited advice, no comments wrapped in concern that are actually criticisms, and, most importantly, no decisions made about someone's life without their direct input. The first dinner was strained. Mom kept catching herself before blurting something helpful, and Dad spent most of it silent, retreating whenever things got emotionally charged. But each week has gotten a little easier. Last Sunday, Dad even asked for my opinion on his retirement plan, instead of telling me what I should do with my own finances. It might seem small, but to me, it was enormous. My own growth hasn't been loud or dramatic, but it's been deep. Through therapy, I've learned how my tendency to avoid conflict crept into every part of my life. I took on extra work I couldn't manage, blamed myself for things that weren't mine to carry, and silenced my voice to avoid rocking the boat. Now, I say what I mean. With kindness, but with clarity. That simple shift changed not only my relationship with my family, but also my job. Just last month, I finally negotiated a well-earned raise instead of quietly accepting the first offer. What I've realized is that real family, real connection, doesn't mean losing yourself for someone else's comfort. Love without respect isn't love, at all. My parents thought controlling us was care. Danielle thought being rescued was love. And I thought being silent was strength. We were all wrong. When I said no to Danielle moving in, it wasn't rejection. It was permission for her to step up. And she did. The irony is almost poetic. That rainy Saturday, they came here expecting to deliver their solution. Instead, they handed us all a moment that changed everything. I look around my apartment now, Tyler's books nestled beside mine, our shared coffee mugs in the drying rack, and I feel something I never did before. Not just peace, but ownership. Not just survival, but healing. If this story spoke to you in any way, consider subscribing to the channel. Because sometimes the messiest moments become the most meaningful chapters. And trust me, this journey isn't over yet. If you've made it this far into my story, thank you. Truly. It means more than I can say. I never thought setting a single boundary would unravel years of silence, guilt, and buried resentment. But that's exactly what happened. If any part of my journey reminds you of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes that rainy Saturday morning? Would you have opened the door or let someone else do it for you, like I did? I'm still learning, still unlearning, still trying not to default to people-pleasing when things get tense. If you've been the responsible one in your family, or the peacemaker, or the one who keeps quiet to keep the peace, I see you. And I hope you know this. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you whole. It might feel uncomfortable. You might ruffle feathers. But that discomfort is often the first step toward real healing. If you've ever faced a moment like mine, tell me below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that dive deep into what it really means to find your voice. We're in this together.